Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Well, some conservatives in the House Republican caucus are none too happy with the deal that House Speaker Mike Johnson cut with Senate Leader Pagliacci Schumer. That essentially is a restraint on spending. It's not really a cut. I mean, it's a modest cut over what Biden wants to spend, but that's not much of a win. Basically, it's slightly more for defense and about the same for non-defense as last year. So it's about restraint, but it's certainly not about slowing the role to America's financial insolvency, to the extent we're not already there technically. But is this the best we could do given the political landscape inside the Beltway? And I mean, not that I'm a Kevin McCarthy diehard, but I think the argument about what expectations were on this landscape, now it's gone from Kevin McCarthy to a very similar deal under Speaker Mike Johnson. Do you have now an appreciation for the composition of the House Republican caucus, the narrow majority that exists there, what they are and are not willing to do under the leadership of a Kevin McCarthy, or even somebody perceived to be certainly more intellectually conservative and talented, Mike Johnson? There's a certain political reality that you have to confront at a certain point in time. But that's not what I hear from some conservative talkers. Oh, Mike Johnson sold us out. Did he? Did he sell conservatives out? Or do you have to plant your feet on terra firma and fight it out and achieve more victories in order to achieve the electoral victories, in order to achieve the policy victories you seek? To help us with that question, please be joined by Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Mike Johnson sold out conservatives. Is that what happened?
Well, look, let's start with the big picture here. I mean, we have a financial fiscal calamity in Washington. I think every one of your listeners knows that. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. What's going on in Washington is extraordinarily dangerous for our country. Biden has come in and added $6 trillion to the debt. It's right now, I think everyone knows it's now just surpassed $34 trillion. By the way, when I came to Washington, when I graduated from the University of Illinois in 1983 and headed D.C. into the swamp, back then Reagan was president, and I'll never forget the debt surpassed the $1 trillion mark. Can you believe it? $1 trillion of debt. And we thought, oh, my God, this is the worst thing we've ever seen. How could a country borrow $1 trillion? Here we are 35 to 40 years later, and we're at $34 trillion. And just to give people a sense of what's going on here, under what we call the Biden baseline, that is to say what he sees, what he would want to have happen over the next 10 years with his budget, it's headed from $34 trillion to more than $50 trillion. So this is as serious as a heart attack, and absolutely something needs to be done about it. Now, I agree with virtually everything you just said, Dan, and that doesn't happen a lot. But I think you nailed it. I think, look, the Republicans have a 3 or 4 seat majority right now in the House. That's out of 435, so it's razor thin. This is a gang of fools in the House Republican caucus that can't even get the 218 votes to agree on what day it is of the week. So, it's really difficult for Mike Johnson to corral these people together. And by the way, there's not virtually a single Democrat in the House that wants to cut spending. And then you've got Chuck Schumer running in the Senate, and you've got, of course, the supervillain, which is Joe Biden, who never saw a spending program he doesn't like. So,
and just a reminder, just to interject too, a reminder within the caucus, that majority caucus in the House, are some Republican big spenders, and we know there's certainly a lot of Senate. There are a lot of Senate Republicans who are big spenders. That seems to be forgotten sometimes. Yeah,
you better believe it. You're 100% correct. You've got, you've got probably at least 25 to 30 House Republicans who don't want to cut a dime. So, we've been, and here's my point, and look, ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with what Dan and I are saying, and if you think that our country is in great financial peril, which I think most sensible people think we are, then really there's only one solution to this problem, or at least the first step. You have to get rid of Joe Biden, we cannot have another Democrat in the White House now, because their spending plans will send this debt to the moon. So I want to keep the focus on, yes, we have a financial catastrophe. The person who created it was Joe Biden. And I'm not blaming it. Look, the fact that we're at $34 trillion of debt is not just because of the Democrats. It's both parties. I want to be clear on that. But I've been here, as I just said, for 40 years. I mean, there's nobody who's been more financially reckless than Joe Biden, probably in American history. So that's where I stand.
But the argument that will be offered, and I'm not unsympathetic to it.
Right.
Is you have to make arguments. You can't just take positions. And so the way that you exercise the power you have, in this case, House Republicans, in this case, Speaker Johnson, is to say, no, we're not going to spend a dime. Forget this deal, this larger deal on discretionary or on military and non-military funding. We're not spending a dime until we get policy changes on border security. And if that brings everything to a halt and brings the American people's attention into zero focus on the border, then all the better, because we'll make our arguments, you make yours, and then we'll see where the pressure comes.
Well, get 218 votes for that. I mean, look, let's be political. What you say makes perfect sense if you have the votes to do it, Dan. And this is what a lot of my conservative friends are saying. So, the problem is, look, there have been 10 government shutdowns in the last 30 years. The media has blamed the Republicans on 9 of the 10 of those. So show me an example where the government shutdown, and like there have been occasions when I've been in favor of government shutdowns, back when Bill Clinton was president and that kind of thing, when he had his famous battles with Newt Gingrich. But this is an instance where you're just so outgunned. You just have to accept political reality. I mean, the American people voted for these fools. They're destroying our country. And the first step to solving this problem is to evict these people. And by the way, a lot of them are the people from the great state of Illinois.
Yes, we're familiar with them. Yeah. Well, I mean, so then there's, I guess, then you turn your attention to the border post this spending deal, and you make the case that we want to do this and they don't want to do that, and so it seems to me that at minimum you have to be relatively intransigent about extracting substantive, easy to understand policy changes at the border before you talk about more funding to this foreign actor or that foreign actor.
Yeah. So it's, as you know, I hail from the great city of Chicago, and so I have a lot of family members who are still there. And my brother the other day, who's actually liberal, sent me this headline from the Chicago Tribune, I think it was over the weekend, saying that something to the effect that the Texas governor, how dare he's shipping illegal migrants into the suburbs of Chicago. Right. And he was saying, "Oh, how outrageous this is! This evil Republican government from Texas." And I just texted him back. I said, "David, you're the ones who made Illinois. I mean, I know Chicago is a sanctuary city. Is Illinois a sanctuary state?"
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, so you asked for it. Here they are. How do you like it?
I want to bust a Kenilworth next.
Exactly.
But, I mean, we're waking up today, and I don't know if I'm seeing.
Say, "Oh, we care so much about the migrants. We should just let them in." And then they come to their, right down the street from them. "Oh, how do these people get here?" I mean, how hypocritical are these liberals?
Well, I don't know if you know what's going on in New York City. James Madison High School, 4,000 students are at home today, remote learning, because 2,000 migrants were shipped to their school last night in the cloak of darkness. I'm out of my mind. I am. This is, and it's not if it's when it's going to happen here. It's going to happen in D.C. It's going to happen everywhere.
Well, again, I mean, I'm only laughing because it's so pathetic. Because this what you said is absolutely right. They're shutting down the schools.
And it's not even remote learning. It's log on and get your assignment. The teachers don't even have to go online and do Zoom with the classes. You just go online and get your assignment.
It's unbelievable that And again, how did this happen? It's because and nothing stopped. The other look, and I'm pro-immigrant. I think immigrants are great for our country. But we have a legal system of immigration. So in Texas, I'm not making this stuff up. In Texas, the governor is trying to build fences and put some barbed wire along the border so they can't just all come in. And the border patrol, Biden's telling the border patrol to cut through the barbed wire so the illegal immigrants can get in.
Well, right, because the federal government has plenary power in immigration, and if they don't want to enforce immigration laws, then nobody enforces immigration laws, and that generates the response by Abbott and DeSantis to make every state a border state and see how you like it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so furious by this because. And then Biden says, "Oh, well, we're trying to, he's saying the border is secure and we're trying to do everything we can." No, they're not. They want these. And the question is, why do they want all these illegal immigrants to come in? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but, there is a big election coming up in November, and, they're not checking the citizenship of the people who are voting in a lot of these states.
That's true. Well, right. You had that Yvette Clarke from Brooklyn say, I need the migrants in here for redistricting purposes. She said the quiet part out loud. But here's what it comes down to. I mean, it may be difficult for people who love this country to hear. But look, if the American people decide to give away their country, well, that's what you can do in a free society.
Yep, we are a representative democracy, and we voted for these people. And how do you like it? But that's why I just find it comical that all these Illinois voters, I'm hearing from so many of them, and some in my liberal friends. Gee, why are all these illegal immigrants coming to Illinois? Well, because you voted for people who say, "Come on, guys, it's all free, and we'll give you free services if you come to Illinois." Which, by the way, the last time I checked, you're running a huge budget deficit in Springfield. So where's the money going to come from?
One other issue I wanted to tackle with you, per your Unleash Prosperity newsletter, is that jobs number that came out for December.
Oh, yeah.
A little deceptive. Actually, the jobs numbers we talked about yesterday are a little deceptive generally for 2023 because they've been driven by government job increases and healthcare job increases, and healthcare is basically utility these days because of the takeover of health insurance. So. But there's another aspect of the jobs numbers that's a little deceptive and maybe helps explain why still 3/4 of the country thinks that, the economy's on the wrong track and they're less well off than they were pre-Biden.
So there's one person who doesn't agree with what you just said, and that's Paul Krugman. You know who Paul Krugman is, Dan, the famous left-wing.
I'm familiar with his work, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, he wrote in the New York Times yesterday how great the economy is right now. I'm like, maybe you should get out of your ivory tower and see what's happening on Main Street, USA. It's funny because the numbers came out on Friday morning at 8:30, and every once a month when those numbers come out, I do the Fox Business Show with Maria Bartiromo, and we talk about the numbers. And when I saw the headline number, which was 205,000 jobs, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good number. That's pretty good. We produced a lot of jobs. And then you peel back this onion, and everything else in the report is negative. More than 500,000 people left the labor force. They all of a sudden they're just not working anymore. So that's the reason the unemployment rate went down. Is all these people stopped looking for jobs. And then you look at by the way, the revisions that they've had this year have been almost 500,000 revisions downward. So they keep coming out with these good jobs reports, and then they keep revising the numbers downward. And you're right, the single biggest employer over the last 12 months, Amy, can you guess which industry was the biggest employer?
The government.
Government! Yeah, state, local, federal government.
I heard Dan say that the other day.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, unfortunately, that number was a lot worse than was advertised. It's still a decent jobs market. There's still jobs out there for people who are looking for work. But I think the biggest problem, Dan and Amy, is we're missing 5 million, mostly males, between the ages of 25 and 60 who could be and should be working and are not. And we can't figure out why they're not working.
But there's another aspect. But there's another aspect of this too, and that's the number of people getting a second and third job.
Oh, that's the other thing, yeah. So there were more of the jobs that were created last month. more of those jobs were second or third jobs than first jobs for people. So if the economy is doing so well, Paul Krugman, why does everybody have to go out and get moonlight and get second and third jobs? Because their paychecks are not keeping pace with inflation.
Yeah, that's a nice wrinkle that has
What are you
been
doing?
underreported.
What are you guys doing at night? I know you're out in the morning. I don't know. Are you washing dishes at a local restaurant or something down at night?
I'm going to start picking up loops again at the local golf course. Make a little bit of pocket cash.
I'm going to drive an Uber.
Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Thanks as always, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Have a great week. Take care.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?